We are the magic. Forgiveness doesn't ask you to forget. It's okay if it's not perfect. Don't let the colorful, like, explosion fool you. I never expected my first encounter with a deity to be with this particular goddess. The aliens, the vibes. I don't know. I'm just kind of winging it. Hi everyone. Welcome back to my channel. It's nice to see you. Today, I'm excited to share my August monthly wrap-up and my exciting September intentions with you. I've got loads of awesome stuff to dive into, so let's just jump right in. We're going to start with what I've been reading. And the first book that I've been reading is Pagan Curious, A Beginner's Guide to Nature, Magic, and Spirituality by Deborah D'Angelo. While the contents of this book is very beginner friendly, teaching the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s of paganism, to quote the back here, and there are a lot of lists that I will be referring to in this book going forward. But the book had two other prerogatives that really stood out to me. The first one was that it acknowledges and teaches that we hold the magic within ourselves, independent of any tools that we might use in our rituals. The tools can be beneficial, but they aren't really crucial. What's crucial is we are the magic. Our tools don't make the magic, but we make the magic. And I thought that was a really cool theme throughout her book. The second thing is that she encourages everyone to explore and develop their individual practices, that there's no correct or incorrect approach, as long as it's safe and respectful to others. Harm ye none. I really enjoyed reading this book. I read it over the course of a couple months just because I am pretty busy. But like I said, this is a reference book for me that has a lot of the basics in it that I will be going to when needed. I am a little bit beyond the contents of this book that was shared in my practice, but I really found some value in it. And I think that if you're just starting out, that it's a great one to hop into. As you can see, I love to annotate my books. I highlighted it, I wrote in it, and for me, that really helps me to retain information. And alongside of doing those annotations, I wrote notes in my spirituality notebook, which is this right here. And these are all notes that I took from the book, but I really had a good time with this book. I did journal a little bit about the book here at the end and what I really took away from it. So if you haven't heard of Pagan Curious, if you are curious or know someone who is, I would highly recommend this book for starters. And then my next read that I want to hop into, and not just for September, I'm sure that this book will take me a couple of months to read, and the transition from a beginner book to this one may seem a little bit abrupt, but it contains two essays, and it's called Essential Tarot Writings by Donald Tyson. And this book contains two essays that really help establish the foundation of tarot through an occult perspective and an occult lens, which has been translated for the very first time by Donald in English. This is the book that I feel like is going to help me step into that intermediate stage of my practice. I feel like I've been teeter-tottering around beginnership and intermediareship, if those are even words. But I believe that this book will really catapult me into my next phase of my tarot practice. So this book is made up of all essays from, it says 1781 to 1928. These essays span that time. I have gone ahead and started reading some of the introduction of this book, and I'm really excited to dig in, and I am really hoping that this gives insight and a foundation and some more background on tarot for me in my practice and some more understanding and insights. So I'm really excited to dig into that one. Next, I wanted to talk about my card of the month. So for August, I pulled the card Forgiveness, and this is the Love Oracle of Eden cards. And I worked with forgiveness by first looking up the definition and then journaling about it. And I have here an excerpt I want to share from my actual journal. And it says, forgiveness is a noun. It is the action or process of forgiving or being forgiven. It is a conscious decision to let go of negative feelings such as anger, resentment, and hostility towards someone who has harmed you. It can involve a voluntary transformation of your feelings, attitudes, and behavior, and can lead to empathy, compassion, and sometimes affection for the person who wronged you. And this is how I started working with forgiveness through this definition. And I go on to talk about words in this definition that really stood out to me, such as let go, conscious decision, transformation, and lead to empathy. The second part here is the most beautiful part of this definition. It can involve a voluntary transformation of your feelings, attitudes, and behavior. It can lead to empathy, compassion, and sometimes affection for the person who wronged you. And I really like that definition. So that was one of the first things that I did. Another thing that I did is I took time to read the meanings in this guidebook, which all of them are fairly short, but one of the parts that really stood out to me in this was that forgiveness doesn't ask you to forget, but to remember that imperfection is the human norm and consists of perceived wrongs. Together, the threads of past transgressions, humility, and understanding intertwine and weave together the delicate fabrics of compassion, understanding, and reconnection. And I really like that. It's true. It is a human norm, that imperfection part, right? Forgiveness isn't about forgetting, but remembering that imperfection and acknowledging it and accepting it. And even when you are the one that has maybe wronged somebody, it's that acceptance piece that really helps you to be accountable and responsible and help you move forward in a better way than you were before. So without forgiveness, none of that could happen, right? Without the mistakes we make or made, none of this could happen. Forgiveness wouldn't be a thing. And another thing that I did is I placed the card in a spot where I would always see it. And for me, it was on my nightstand, clipped to my lamp with a tie brooch or a tie clip that belonged to my grandfather. So it was always there once I woke up in the morning, when I went to bed at night, anytime I went into my room, anytime I sat on the bed, it was right there, clipped to the lamp for me to have in my mind. It was present. Additionally, I did do a tarot spread centered on forgiveness to help dive a little bit deeper into working with that theme and the message of the card. And this experience was truly healing and helpful for me as I interacted with my card of the month. I really enjoyed the whole process, from reading the definition and journaling about it, doing a spread, reading the guidebook. And I would do that. I would pick up the guidebook throughout the month and just reread that definition just to have it at top of mind. And this is a process that I want to keep doing for the coming months. So keep watching, because towards the end of this video, we will be picking September's card of the month together. And I'm really looking forward to discovering the message for September. Okay, so let's move on to the decks that I worked with in August. So just to briefly mention these two, the Spacious Tarot and the Earth Magic Oracle cards. I recently used these decks for my full moon spread creation and journaling session, which I did film and upload. If you haven't seen the video, I will link it above. But the video is about building your own tarot spread and journaling about the process. And even though that video is specifically about the full moon of August 2024, I think that you could still find value in it, and really taking the time to sit down, create a spread. It's okay if it's not perfect, but really just doing it and practicing it and getting it down on paper and brainstorming is so helpful when building a spread, building questions to ask. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. And the next deck that I used this month was Zeke's Arcana. Beautiful edging. I chose to work with Zeke's Arcana because to me, it really embodies August. The last bit of summer, the dog days, the heat, the sweat, and all the adventures. I ended up getting Zeke's Arcana at the end of July. And yes, I did purchase this because I know that the creator will stop printing copies of this deck, and it's one that I have had on my wish list that I've always been drawn to but never pulled the plug on or never committed to. So I finally went ahead and purchased it directly from the creator, and it traveled across the world from Australia to me on the east coast of the United States. And I have been enjoying this deck. It's so quirky. I love the colors. And I've used it for my daily draws. I've used it for before bed spreads. I've used it for other random readings. And I've had such clear messages. And that's the thing with this deck. Don't let the colorful, like, explosion fool you, because this deck will tell you how it is. But I really like that about this deck, that it can have fun, but it knows when to get down to business as well. And I have not done my interview spread with this deck just yet. Sometimes I do wait a little bit before hopping in and doing the spread. I don't know why. Some decks, that's the first spread and interaction that I do after flipping through all the cards, and other decks I work with it for a little while and then I do the deck interview spread. But if you want to see how I do my deck interview spreads, let me know and I can make a video about it. And then I only worked with one other deck this month, and that is the Nosotras Tarot. And this is the star of the month. And let me tell you why. So I have a deep affection for the artwork and feel a very strong connection to this deck. This card was one that popped up for me all the time and now has become my significator of myself for this deck. And funny here, this is the card that popped up a lot and is what I feel is the significator for this deck in a reading. So these two popped up a lot as I was using it. Anyway, going back to what I was saying, I feel a strong connection to this deck because the deck is created by Brazilian artists and was created during a time of significant political unrest in the creator's country. The creators intended for the deck to serve as a form of resistance and symbolizing that while government might attempt to diminish the rights of women and women presenting individuals, that they can never eradicate the inherent strength and spirit that is within those individuals. And that was such a powerful message. And plus, this deck is collage, and collage is one of my favorite forms of art in general, not just in tarot decks. So I really appreciated those two factors coming together in this deck. And this one, similar to Zeke's Arcana, I use for my daily draws, for any type of themed reading that I had in mind. I used it for my bedtime spread reading that I do. Anything I needed to consult the tarot on, I was mostly choosing this, and I chose this the most over Zeke's. So that's why this deck has been the star of the month of August. And now I want to move on to some other cool things. I recently had my first encounter with a deity, and it's been quite an incredible experience. I've been noticing signs and symbols for a while now, but it wasn't until recently that everything started to really click for me. It's really interesting because I never expected my first encounter with a deity to be with this particular goddess, because she is so much farther away from my own personality and values. But I was excited nonetheless. And drum roll, that goddess is Lilith. And it all started when I found myself strangely drawn to the color red. And red has never been a color that I've particularly liked, but I ended up buying like red notebooks, red pens, inks, and I even centered this channel theme around the color red. So I really started to see the impact from Lilith on me in that way. And everywhere I turned, I kept seeing and hearing things about Lilith, whether it was books I was reading or videos that I was consuming, and even down to a tarot deck that I had purchased recently this year. So I decided that I would dive right into researching about Lilith. And so I did that here in my spirituality notebook that I have dedicated to any explorations that I have. This is a different journal than my, I guess, grimoire. But I just thought it was important to get the notes right down as I went. And I just started getting to know her. So I'm still trying to understand what message or guidance that Lilith has for me, but I'm really excited to explore and embrace her presence in my life. Also this month, I followed a video tutorial series by Mystic Mand here on YouTube on how to create a themed junk journal. And she provided step-by-step instructions, and I'm really happy with how mine turned out. She repurposed an Amazon package, and in that vein, I was like, oh, I have one of those. So I also repurposed an Amazon box. And she went through and took you every step of the way on how to like pick your theme, select papers. And it was just a really fun, creative time. For sure, I stuffed too many pages in my signatures. Well, that's okay. We're learning here on this channel. It's a learning process. I'm not exactly sure what to use this journal for yet. So if you have any suggestions, I would really love to hear them in the comments. But all the papers that I chose, I just had lying about the house. I have this coffee dyed paper that I made in a huge batch like years ago, and I'm still trying to work through. I included some pages from an herb book. I also had these collage art papers that were just kind of lying around that I did. And they are on a thicker paper, which did bulk this up. So if I hadn't included so many of these, I think it would have been a little bit better. I really just enjoyed myself. This is from actually a gift bag that I cut up. I was like, sure, we'll have some sparkle, an old dictionary page, some personal ephemera that I have from friends and family. I don't know, envelopes. I put envelopes actually in the signatures, some pages. I don't know, it was a lot of fun to put together. I can do I guess I could do a flip through of this, which I'm doing right now, but I highly suggest if you are interested in making a journal, go ahead and watch her tutorial. She has a whole series. It takes you through beginning to end, adding in decorations on the inside even, and it was just really great. And even if you think that you are not crafty or artistically inclined, you do not need to be that to create this. And I just really had fun. In fact, I had so much fun that I ended up making my daughter her own because she saw this and she wanted one herself. I can't blame her. And I ended up making hers out of a little Berea pasta box. So you can literally take anything and make a book. But that was a lot of fun. And then the last random, I guess, in this category of miscellaneous is I celebrated the birth month of my channel in August, and I'm so glad that I went for it and have been thoroughly enjoying myself creating and being in that creative mode for the first time in a very, very long time. Doing this has really reignited my passion, and I couldn't be happier. And I'm looking forward to celebrating more milestones with you all in the future. Now let's move on to the last part of the video, which is more about September and the intentions I have for the upcoming month. Let's start off by drawing the new card of the month with the Love Oracle of Eden cards. So I have them right here. And I'm going to put forgiveness back. And I'm just going to breathe. I'm going to ground and center. I'm going to welcome forward my guides, my ancestors, spirit guides, animal guides, plant guides to this card pull. Okay, so what is the theme or message for the month of September? We have Serenity. Ooh, what a gorgeous card. Beautiful. I can't wait to explore this month's card. And I think this month I'm going to structure it similarly to how I did the previous months, but I want to introduce some meditations around this theme, which I think is so perfect and aligned with Serenity. And yeah, I'm going to read the guidebook, look up a definition, journal about it, do some tarot spreads on it, and think of a way to do a meditation with this card. So this month, the month of September, is all about serenity. Gorgeous. So let's move on to decks that I want to work with in September. I am usually not prescribed to choosing certain decks. I just kind of choose decks as I see fit, and that can differ from reading to reading, day to day, hour to hour, however it is. I really wanted to work with a couple of decks from and because of the tarot ranking video that I did, which I will also include if you haven't seen that yet. But one of the decks from that video that really drew my attention, where I was like, yeah, I really want to work with this deck in the upcoming month, is the Desert Illuminations Tarot. I recently acquired this probably about a month ago now, and like I have mentioned, it is and was, I guess, I don't know, was? No, still is a unicorn deck of mine. And I was so fortunate to come across someone who was willing to part with their copy. And I'm really drawn to the Southwest and Latin America and Mesoamerican culture. And even though we're entering the fall months, and the weather here on the East Coast, the Northeast to be specific, is going to be getting cooler and the days are going to be getting shorter, I still feel really drawn to use this. And most people might designate this as a summer deck only, but I like to work with my decks in a different way. While I do think it's fun to have some seasonality with decks, I don't just solely use decks in a particular season of life or a particular weather season. I really like to take a look at my collection, and like I said, from day to day, I might decide to work with a different deck every day. And maybe that's not the most efficient way, especially when you really want to get to know a particular deck, but that is just how it has been working for me. However, I would like to make a concerted effort to really work with this deck. And because it is a unicorn deck and it is harder to find and it's a little bit more precious, I think that it's naturally going to be harder to put this to use because for all of those reasons that I mentioned, but I don't want it to just sit on a shelf and collect dust. I really want to work with all the figures in this deck, all the people, the aliens, the vibes, the cultures. I really want to immerse myself in these cards. And I mean, how perfect is that for a fall type card anyway? So I think it does match up in some ways to the season, but I don't know. I really want to make an effort to use this. So if you have any suggestions, or maybe put a comment down below on how you use your monthly decks. I know that tarot readings from a bitch here, Cody, she talks about her monthly decks and how she uses them, and I always try to watch her videos and get little glimpses into some different ways that I could use my decks. But the second one that I really want to focus on using is the Tarotbot Black. And if you saw my ranking video, I was just as surprised to find out how much I really adore this deck. But the this deck is just so emotive, and the how it feels to me is these robots have come to this planet for the first time and they're figuring out life. At least that's just what the story feels like to me in this deck. And they are curious about everything. Everything is brand new to them. They're building their new life on an unknown place, but there's also some hardship that comes with something that is brand new and is large and big like that. So this deck is super expressive. I love the robots. I don't know, this deck just makes me incredibly happy. Look at this Four of Swords. He's meditating. I mean, I just love them all so much, and I want to spend some more time with this deck. So I think that I have a clearer picture as to how I will incorporate this deck into my September readings, and I think that is through daily pulls. Whereas the Desert Illuminations, I'm still a little bit unsure. Maybe I'll do some ancestral stuff with the Desert Illuminations. I don't know. I'm just kind of winging it. And then my other intention for September is, again, to really dig into this book, start reading it, start taking some notes. And then the final thing for my intentions for September is to set up a new tarot study journal. I recently purchased an old, like, Hobonichi cousin from, I think, 2023 or something like that on Mercari. It was greatly discounted. Hobonichi notebooks cost a lot of money, but for how I want to use the notebook, the dates don't really matter too much to me, and I want to explore a new way to set up my tarot study and the journal. So I'm going to do a whole dedicated video to that when that journal comes in, of me setting it up, designing it, and I don't know, just having fun and talking through my thoughts about that. So be on the lookout for that video. And with that said, that is my August and September monthly wrapped. I hope to catch you next month, where I talk about the things for September and then I talk about my October intentions. Check out the other videos that are on my channel if you wish. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me out as I'm starting out my channel here. And until next time, see you around.